one of the things that you can expect in the next 20 years, and usually these events start happening already from the beginning. From the moment Pluto starts entering Aquarius, you will see the direction, you will see where things are heading. And already Aquarius means the whole economic system. Aquarius is society. Aquarius is the financial system. We think Taurus is connected to money only, but no, because the economic system is a very complex system of interconnected entities and collaboration and networking. All the economy and finances are way more Aquarian thing than Taurus thing. Taurus is more like the resources, the food, and so on, while the whole economy, the import and export and all of those connections between you make one product, you sell it all over the world, and stock markets are also Aquarius. So what is Pluto? Pluto is the planet of crisis. Pluto is the planet of total destruction and recreation. So there will be a new economic system that will finish. And most likely it will be preceded by financial crisis because, as you know, if some of you know, some of you don't know, but Pluto is the planet that usually starts the big transformations with a crisis. It's fast, sometimes it's bloody, but that's one of the big things we can expect, and it's happening. You're seeing it already. I don't know if it will happen in the next 3 months or in the next 3 years, but when we're into Pluto in Aquarius, there will be a new economic system. I cannot tell you if it's for better or good. I mean, there are plans for, it might be very enslaving, because if you look at here, I'll stop for a little bit, the share to show you the chart. If you look in Aquarius, put it as the beginning, put it like at the ascendant, the beginning of the chart. Then the sign that Pluto rules, which is known as Scorpio, Scorpio is connected to Pluto, becomes the 10th sign from Aquarius. So all of those changes that they see with the world happening, they would have, and the 10th house is the house of governments, people at the top. And because the sign is Scorpio there, it's not just those official governments that you see. It's not just the normal politicians and so on. It is actually the so-called, they are hidden, because Scorpio has a very hidden quality. Scorpio consolidates, just like Pluto, a lot of energy in a very small number. So we're talking here a few thousand people or a few hundred people that are pulling the strings of the whole world. So they'll be the big players, because the ruler of Scorpio, they're on the top, the so-called hidden elites, the so-called, the ones on the top that are, so the ones on the top that are, they call it the deep state or whatever, but there is a few families in the world that actually has most of the wealth. And it's becoming, everyone knows this now. It's no longer a conspiracy theory or anything. This is the energy of Scorpio, a lot of power concentrated in Pluto, a lot of power, because Pluto is a tiny planet. We can't see it, but it punches. It has such an impact. Anyone who's had Pluto transit can tell you that. And so such a small group can strongly affect the whole next 20 years. And what is Aquarius? Is the normal people. Aquarius is the population. Aquarius is everyone, you and me, the average Joe, the masses, the average Joe, the masses. So there will be a very direct interference by some hidden people on top, because the height of the horoscope is the top, you know, the top, the governments who are interfering and trying to control, another key word, Pluto, of Pluto in Scorpio, control, micromanage almost, the whole masses, all of us, you know, humanity as a whole. And that's kind of a bit more darker side of it. So a lot of the big changes that you'll see over the next 20 years, they would be orchestrated hiddenly. That's very scorpionic, from people very much on top, and they'll directly impact the masses of people. Another thing, though, that the 10 houses on the high vibration, it's the highest Actually, in ancient times, it wasn't the house of God, was not the ninth, was the 10th, the mid-heaven, the highest, because it's the highest. So there'll be a direct intervention. It's always the higher forces are directly involved with the humanity. I've done videos that there are certain levels of entities, archai and archangels, each one like the angels are for the individual person, the archangels are for whole nations, the archai above, they run the history of whole eons and ages as we know them. And so there'll be a direct interference of very occult, esoteric, invisible forces acting on humanity as well. And these are so they're the two levels of Scorpio that Pluto rules. The highest level is divine will. Pluto is known in astrology as the higher will, or you can call it the will of your higher self, or the will, God's will. The lower vibration of Scorpio and Pluto is interference from the lower astral regions. So a lot of those people that might be interfering, a small group, they're not just normal people with money, they're people connected to the occult very powerfully, that are in power. I know I sound like a conspiracy theorist, but we're talking Pluto here. So we'll be unveiling some very uncomfortable truths. That's the ultimate goal of Pluto, to break your naivety cherry, as they say. Once Pluto passes through a planet, you're no longer naive there. You're no longer, it's kind of your initiation into much maturity. And it sometimes happens a bit ruthlessly. But also very powerful divine forces, the divine will of God will act directly among the normal people, Aquarius. And that's why I'm saying one of the other big things that will happen in the age of Aquarius will be a powerful awakening of humanity. Aquarius is humanity, society. Pluto in its higher vibration is the evolution of the soul. And of course, the divine will, because the evolution of the soul aligns and follows divine will. Even if sometimes it's not something we really enjoy, this is what will make the soul most joyful. So I see that there will be a strong interference, kind of brutal, ruthless, trying to control this hidden small circle of people, directly society, humanity. Of course, it will be done through Aquarian means, digital technology, and so on, through herd mentality as well. But there will be interference from the higher occult forces, the more positive ones, that the natural evolution of humanity, that they're going for the natural evolution of humanity, which will be like a waves of awakening for people, rising of consciousness, because Aquarius rules the ability, that's another thing of the sign Aquarius, to connect telepathically to channels of information. We do it now with the internet, channels of information through the air. Aquarius is an air sign. We can do that, but there is the more evolved way is actually esoterics and occultists speak, that Aquarius rules the so-called telepathic channels that go through the whole space and cosmos and universe, just like we can see the Wi-Fi and the whole movies passing through you now, and all the information through internet is around you in vibration and wave with the internet. The same way, there is highways of information created by higher forces that if you tap into these highways, you can access Akashic records, you can telepathically communicate with others, you can just download information in an instant like we do with the computers now, but they can do it now with people, more and more people born in the next 20 years or that are born already will unlock those abilities of the brain, because Aquarius rules the brain, by the way. One of the things it rules is the nervous system, and the brain is the biggest part of the nervous system. So there'll be very powerful awakening for people that already have those capacities in the brain, that can connect telepathically to those channels of information, and people downloading information, just knowing things. And Aquarius as well rules the nervous system, so we have to be more careful with the nervous system. We already saw the last 2-3 years, Saturn was transiting Aquarius, the nervous system of humanity, they even say COVID, is a neurological disease, not so much respiratory virus. They're proving it now. It's in scientific magazines that it's way more, the damage is way more neurological, but Pluto is entering now. So the nervous systems of humanity will become so sensitive. How can I say? And that's a good thing if you want to evolve your consciousness. But for people that are not ready for their nervous system to receive more higher vibrations, it can feel like burning of your nervous system. It can feel like going crazy. It can feel like depressions, mental health problems of any sort. So but based on the nervous system, neurotic conditions. And these will, unfortunately, these will speed up a lot. You know, you'll see this, but that's usually because the energy is pent up in those people. There is pent up blockage of the chakras. Pluto is very much connected to all the chakras. Pluto and Scorpio rules all the apertures in the body. So it might be your anus and other apertures, but also there's 7 openings in the body, energetic ones. They're more than that, but these are the so-called chakras. So we're seeing how here there'll be the speeding up of the opening of chakra that affects the nervous system, Aquarius, that can create a crisis. And hopefully there'll be more and more healers and people that understand what's happening, so they don't just stuff people with more medications to stop this process and block it even further. But basically, there is very neurological and kind of situations that will be because of blocked energies in the chakras. But what Pluto is trying to do is kind of, because Pluto is a purging influence, to purge those blockages on the nervous system, Aquarius, that actually the nervous system acts through the chakras very much, to unblock it. And in this process of unblocking it and purging it, it can be crisis situations with the nervous system, with mental health, and so on. But the ultimate goal is, again, the upgrade of the human DNA, because Aquarius rules another thing as well. Pluto, not Pluto and Aquarius together. Pluto rules the DNA itself. So it carries, it's secret, it's invisible, it carries the information for humanity, for the whole person. And of course, it can mutate. That's another thing. In Aquarius is humanity. It's the sign of the human being. It's one of the signs that is fully represented by a human being. So there will be a change in the genome of humanity. They can be done in 2 ways. Of course, again, Pluto is a representative of Scorpio. The law of vibration from the 10th house might be some kind of a mutation that is happening that is not very good. It might be through toxicity of some sort. It might be through, Pluto rules any kind of mutations on the DNA, through toxicity or through manipulation of any sort. Or the other thing, the high vibration of Pluto is that in Aquarius is that the genome of human beings will, you know how they say we're using so little of our DNA, so it will reorganize itself somehow. They say we have even 12 strands of DNA that are not unlocked yet, whatever, but something will rearrange itself. So I'm making a very bold predictions here, but I feel it very intuitively. The lifespans of humans will expand a lot with Pluto in Aquarius over the next 20 years. More and more people will live about 100 years because something is happening on a molecular level. It can be achieved also by the other manifestation of Pluto, which is regenerative processes of science, technology, because we're in the Aquarian sign. So it can be done artificially somehow, that people will achieve much longer lifespans through technology, through manipulation of the genes by scientists, or through some kind of regenerative therapies. But it even has a high manifestation where life can be prolonged by natural evolution of the DNA inside. And on another level, though, Pluto is the planet of death and rebirth. And when Pluto was in Leo, we had the baby boomers, a huge boom in births. Leo rules birth, children, and so on. But Pluto in Aquarius, the opposite sign, we're going to have a lot less babies. The number of people will become small, but the longevity will increase. Again, it might not have much of a logical thing for you. I just feel it very intuitively, and the symbology of astrology talks to me like that. So longer lifespan, artificial or organic ways that we achieve this, because someone raises their vibration, so they live much longer, or because someone uses some intervention, medical, technological, but less people. So, and Pluto on the darker side is the planet of death. And when it is in Aquarius, there will be a big number of humans going away. It's just we're not going to be as many over the next 20 years. It's, I don't know if it's a divine culling or planned earth culling of some sort, but maybe some kind of a crisis, which is Pluto, but it kind of feels organized to me. But there is divine intervention as well that takes some of the souls away in big numbers that are not ready for this, that the events will be too intense. And just some souls will, their higher self will consciously, agree that it's time for them to leave. So there'll be mass exodus of souls. I'm not saying it will happen now in March, but you'll see more and more, like might be like cataclysms of some sort, or I don't know exactly how it will happen. And some of them will be organized on Earth by hidden powers on top. Others will be divine interventions. But you see that there will be less people by the end of those 20 years than they currently are. But let me carry on with, and I wanted to tell you something. Why people say, well, Pluto, Scorpio used to be ruled by Mars till 1930, till we discovered Pluto. And Scorpio is the sign of death, the 8th house, Mars. And it made sense 100 years ago that Mars was the ruler of the 8th house, because people lived on average 40 to 50 years. I kind of have a morbid fascination, being very strongly Plutonian, with the cemeteries. And when I lived in England, I would go to old churches and would read the cemetery, what it says on each cemetery. And they were like 500-600 years old tombs there. And this kind of, where it says who died here. So from the 16th, 17th, 18th century, and the majority were like people in their 40s, people in their 30s, people in their latest 50s. Sometimes you'd see someone who is in their 70s that they died, but it was rare for hundreds of years ago. They say that because we were in Kali Yuga, the dark age, the lifespan of humans, it's much shorter. But this, just a second. But I forgot where I was. So yes, Mars used to rule death, and death was sharp and fast. Most people died from wounds in wars, from high temperatures, suddenly developing a scarlet fever, or it's like bam. So you're here one day, gone another. It was a very bloody, messy thing, death, before we discovered Pluto for majority of humanity. Of course, there were people that died in old age, comfortable in their sleep, but for majority, some virus, which is again Mars thing, comes, sweeps everyone away. Some kind of a horde runs through, destroys the whole village. The flu comes in, kills everyone. And or you get a wound and you can't, or you just get an appendicitis and you die because there was no surgery and stuff. Pluto comes though. Pluto gets discovered, and death was Mars is a very extrovert planet. Death was such a normal thing. Like you could walk down the street and a few people have been hanged, and you're walking down, that's a normal view. People impaled around you on stakes, and you're just like, oh yeah, I'm going down to buy bread, and here is that traitor, or here is that woman that had an affair, impaled, or it's like that. And it was a public thing. But now Pluto rules already Scorpio more and more. Mars also, but Pluto is coming into its power more as a ruler. Death is a very private thing now. The whole village doesn't gather to watch you die. It's usually in private places. It's a very introspective period as well. And that is prolonged a lot more because Mars is much closer planet to us, much shorter rotation, while Pluto is the planet furthest away. So life is prolonged a lot more. And it's happening through what? One of the things is through surgery. Surgery is like if I had appendix at 30, if Pluto was not, if there was no surgery, I would be dead at 30, or they cut out a mass or whatever. First of all, people started dying now. It's normal to live till 90 and 80, 90. But a bit like Pluto, the last final years of life tend to be hidden, private, introspective. Sometimes a person is forgotten in our culture. Just like Pluto is invisible, far away into the dark, little by little, people tend to shrivel into 80s, 90s. It's a little bit, and a lot of people die from Pluto diseases. Pluto rules cancer. Pluto rules all diseases where the cells start mutating and they can't reproduce themselves correctly, the right information. So now most of the ways we die, of course, there are people that die early and so on from accidents, but it's not in Mars ways, it's in Plutonian ways, in hidden processes within the cell and the DNA. It's a slow, gradual process, because again, Pluto is a very slow planet. It's a more mystical, like we regard death as something taboo, and death wasn't taboo when Mars was still the ruler. But anyway, let me start sharing again the screen with you. So the other thing we're going to see is new social system. Aquarius rules the social, Aquarius rules any kind of systems. So any kind of systems without a center. Society doesn't have center. The economic system doesn't have a center, even though they're trying to do it. They're trying to do it centralized. The nervous system doesn't have a center. Just it's the opposite of Leo, where the heart is the center. The internet that Aquarius rules doesn't have a center. So it's or if you're an electrician, electrical grid system doesn't have center. If you're someone who is anything Aquarians that works with systems, technology, electricity, all of those. So the social system there'll be a new social system. Pluto is death, rebirth. I don't know if it will happen in a night. Pluto is a slow planet. I think it will be a gradual process. But a gradual process that leads to a crisis, because the final stages of Pluto always like some kind of a crisis that happens and escalates. So there might be first some kind of a society collapse that we witness. Oh, it sounds scary. Oh, I'm bringing of doom and gloom. Well, it's Pluto. It's a possibility, okay? I'm not saying 100%. We can change it. But Pluto in Aquarius, when I've looked back, when Pluto was in Aquarius the last time, there was a total collapse of the normal society system. The French Revolution, the whole society based on nobles and those below them was destroyed. And as a result of the French Revolution, monarchies started falling left and right around the world, and democracies appeared for the first time. So huge change in the political and social system. Also, another good thing that happened was that's when the American War of Independence was happening. Pluto in Aquarius the last time. And why am I saying it's a good thing? They rebelled, because Aquarius is a very rebellious sign, so it's Pluto, a very rebellious planet, and Aquarius wants freedom, but they didn't do it just because they wanted to be independent from England, from the crown. They did it because of the taxation, the taxes that the crown was taking, and they were quite unbearable. So when they freed themselves, they did the American Constitution or whatever, how they did society is that there was no taxation at the beginning in the States on your personal labors. So they rebelled against that because they were kind of against this enslavement, financial, economic enslavement. And Pluto wanted to destroy that. So I'm really hoping and very positive that this will, because history repeats, but in different ways, that there'll be like something that abolishes the whole enslavement of people through taxation, because Pluto rules taxes, by the way. as a ruler of Scorpio. Scorpio rules like those things: death, taxes, and sex. So it's a bit of a love it or hate it topics. And so there might be like a big uprising of people against, because everything you're being taxed now, you're going to be taxed on the air you're breathing. This is what carbon footprint it is. On how much you breathe, how much you walk. They're planning to do in the UK now, where everyone will have how much they move, and they have a quota, not just with cars, walking, whatever, you have a quota of how much. Is total control what they're trying to do. It's kind of scary, but I have the great hope that seeing what happened when Pluto was in Aquarius before, how humanity liberated itself from long-standing tyrants, let's say, because again, Pluto rules the 10th house, which is those in power coming into Aquarius. Those in power become very visible, till now, Pluto is a hidden planet, you can't see it. So when the ruler of the 10th house enters the first house, because we're now in Pluto in Aquarius, becomes the first house, those that are pulling the strings, or that are using tyrannical methods or hidden methods to manipulate, to control, to enslave, they become very visible to the public. It's like their secret, all their dirty stuff get exposed, and in front of the face. Aquarius is the normal people, like Pluto comes in front of your face. Pluto rules the 10th house of government institutions, those in power, the elites, so you're like, okay, I see what's happening. But usually during those times, exactly those people try to press their control so much more down on the people, but the other response back is like, wow, you are batshit crazy. We cannot tolerate psychos running the world or whatever. And it's people rebelling, just like Marie Antoinette was going to extremes, let them eat cakes and whatever, and people rebelled. Or the crown was imposing crazy taxes in the USA and so on. So people said, we want independence from those ruling above. So there's the hopeful side there. Then new supply chains, and collapse of the old ones. We're seeing already that there is like problems in supply chains. I see that it's going to be way more massive than what this is just baby stuff that are happening. There'll be something much, maybe interruption for a longer period. Again, my doom and gloom. But I need to tell you what it means with astrological terminology. Then, of course, new technologies, AI, we talked about that, no need to do that. Big changes in plane travel industry. Aquarius rules aviation. Aquarius rules anything that flies in the sky. And Pluto there will destroy that industry and rebuild it, recreate it in some way, or try to control it very strongly. Again, that's very Plutonian thing that first happens. And it might become like some crisis there. And because like if we're going to have footprinting carbons, just you flying one time per year from Europe to the States, that takes 25% of your carbon footprint. So people will not be able to fly much unless you buy credits. So only the more richer people can, because 25% also includes that's like if you're left only with 75% carbon footprint, that includes what you can eat, what you can buy, and so on, that they'll try to impose. So that might be, that's a very dystopian, dark possibility. The other thing is that the aviation industry gets transformed and gets way more advanced. We've been waiting for that for a long time. It seems planes are getting smaller and spaces tinier, but let's see. And of course, Aquarius rules space travel. There might be some huge advances with space travel. Maybe they can break through the dome finally. Another conspiracy theory there. We're on a flat earth. I'm just playing with you. I don't know. Who knows? I am willing to believe anything. Poisoning of the air. Aquarius is an air sign. And Pluto, one of the meanings of Pluto is poisoning. It's, of course, its connection to Scorpio, the poison in the sting. So Pluto hasn't entered Aquarius already, and we're seeing this in Ohio. What's happening in 4 or 5 places, 7 places in America, there's been poisoning. of with gases. Gases is very air, volatile. And so there is poisoning of the air, but followed by new policies about it and new, trying to also regenerate the air. Plus, there's a lot of people saying and noticing already that chemtrails poisoning the air. They're calling it climate control. They're trying to dim a bit the sun to control this, but who knows what kind of other chemicals they put inside. It's there is the earth in virgin mountains and rivers is full of aluminum and such kind of stuff from all the spraying. And this is like very much on the agenda. Pluto is poisoning Aquarius, is the airspace. It will be, you keep seeing more of that, but again, it's also the awareness of it comes to the public. And maybe it's like, because Pluto takes you to one extreme and then asks you to correct it after that. It exposes those dirty things. I believe that chemtrails and this poisoning of the air that's been happening will become very public knowledge. It already is, but it will become way more. Everyone will know it, everyone will notice it, and steps will be done to change that. So people will start rising. For example, people living in Switzerland, they've never seen chemtrails. They say, well, and because NATO is not there, only mostly countries with NATO, they have agreements with. That's at least what I've been told by someone that lives in Switzerland, Dr. Maria Johnson. And other countries, I read somewhere that Mexico is saying that they're going to be the first chemtrail-free country. Was it Mexico, some other country? I'm not sure. But they're going to stop the military spraying or putting this in travel planes or whatever they're putting. So it's coming out, but there will be a lot of focus on that, cleaning up the pollution in the air. Rethinking relationships with technology, social media, because of the mental health crisis. One of the biggest addictions now is not even anymore substances. Well, substances are there. Neptune is still in Pisces. The epidemic with substances is crazy. What I see in Seattle, where I live very close to, it's scary. I can walk on the streets. It's people out of their minds. It's like demonic possession. But Pluto in Aquarius, addiction is now with scrolling, social media. Aquarius through social media, the internet, and Pluto is obsession. This obsession will intensify to the level that it has to be dealt with. And just like now there are AA groups for sex or whatever, there'll be groups for breaking the addiction toward social media, and there'll be a big reversal, because that's how Pluto works. It intensifies the crisis. It makes it worse at first. Mental health starts breaking down. Do you know that more than 24% of Generation Z and even into Generation Alpha, our children now and the teenagers have suicidal thoughts? When has this ever been? 24%. This is incredible. And a lot of this kind of this overstimulation with social media and just mindless. I love internet. I love social media. But when I do it, whatever I read, I incorporate it into my work. If you use it to learn something, or are you using it just to waste time and doom scrolling, I do a lot of doom scrolling. I think I'll need therapy first for that. So there'll be some big breakthrough or awareness, because people will start realizing that a lot of the emotional disconnection and health problems, psychological problems, nervous system overload is with this, with the online, not just being on the internet, but using it for all kinds of just mindless scrolling, as we know, wasting time. And they'll be rethinking of the relationships with technology, social media, trying to control it more in some way. Of course, they'll be trying to control. I haven't put it there, but you'll see big control on the internet with Pluto enters Aquarius. So you won't be able, again, it will be probably through governments, Pluto, the ruler of the 10th house from Aquarius. Well, you won't be able just to go on the internet anytime to check. You need to have a digital ID and digital number of some sort. And that will be the only way you can use technologies. It is coming, Pluto in Aquarius, it's very likely. I mean, this is the symbology, Pluto control of the internet, of the access to the internet. That might be good for trolling, actually. That might be good for bullying online, because then you can't just use fake IDs and so on. That might be good also for all kind of fake IDs that do damage and so on. That might be good for hackers, but also that will be every single click you do will be observed, and what you're and who you are and where you're doing it from. So that's also control. So there's good sides, there's negative sides. We talked about the change of the human DNA, artificial natural evolution. I'll skip that. Revolutions and rising of the people for freedom and against control. We said that already. There is a lot of other things that Pluto in Aquarius will do, but it's just, this webinar is more about personal level. And you can watch my 2023 video if you're interested more in Pluto in Aquarius, other things that will happen. There will be new society, there will be new group, new paradigm, how to live socially. People will arise out of those crises that are coming, that will create new social structure, that will create new way of living, that will create, they will give a new paradigm, which will be groundbreaking, which will be transformative. They'll not want, as I said, Pluto in Aquarius increases the control over the population, but at the same time increases the desire for freedom of the population to the level where they rebel, to the level where there's a lot of rising, or there is a lot of more tactical, clever ways to go around it. Pluto rules underground culture. Pluto, I'm not talking people that live underground, but they call it not the mainstream, but the underground. So the underground will become pretty mainstream in humanity, and a lot of humans will be clued into those trends. Okay,